And then
All
I'm
right,
going to
welcome
mute.
everybody. It's 11:05, and we had some technical difficulties, but 5-minute delay is not that bad. Thanks for joining us. It's Tim Kelley and Jeremy Reiner and everybody, and we've got a lot of uh, familiar faces here, and we're going to lament our lack of snow. Now we're going to talk about what happened this winter. That that prevailing jet stream, Jeremy, that we led off with, that was a pretty resounding universal forecast that just about every outlet was making with
Yeah.
that southeastern ridge, and I don't see anybody that had forecast the snowiest winter on record in Pensacola, Florida.
No, no, that
So that
warm and dry, definitely, at least for that, was that 1 week or 10-day stretch down there in the Gulf Coast in January, that definitely was not warm and dry. Um, yeah, this was basically my thought process last November. I thought La Nina winter, so trough leaning west, southeast ridge. That's usually the playbook for a La Nina winter, a weak La Nina, but a La Nina winter nonetheless. Um, and then we discussed that in weak La Ninas, you can do fairly well in the snowfall category in southern New England. That versus like say a stronger La Nina. I do remember that as well. And so but with all that said, I still was thinking that we would have um, below normal snow, but it would be snowier than last winter, um, which granted the bar was really low because
all
we
right.
didn't have much snow last winter. So these were my bullet points. Below normal snow, limited cold, more snow than last year, messy mixed storms. And overall, I thought the winter would be colder than last winter, but I still thought overall with that southeast ridge, in our modern climate, that you'd probably would still have more warm days than cold days. And so how did that turn out?
Do you still have the forecast of the tubes? Are you going to go there?
I
The
am going
forecast?
there. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you could, now can I, let's see, can I move? Yeah, I can move that window over. So you can see there, if I break down, each line there, we did hit the below normal snow. The limited cold though, I missed on that because it was not limited cold. It turned out to be our coldest winter in Boston, since the winter of 2013, 2014, in terms of all 3 months having below normal temperatures. The winter months, December, January, February. We did have more snow than last year, but again, when you have limited snow the year before, it's pretty easy to go out on that limb. We did have a number of messy mixed storms. And then the bottom bullet point there, more warmth than cold. No, I missed on that one because there was definitely quite a bit of cold compared to what we saw. Let's see now. How will that?
Yeah, we did have a bunch of cold, but it wasn't really that harsh. Like, it didn't kill like the hydrangea kind of cold.
Yes.
That happened in one day 3 years ago. We had one day that killed the plants. We didn't have one of those that winter this winter.
Yeah. I mean, as I look out off my property, like I've got forsythia this year. So we had cold, but we didn't have the cold that wipes out forsythia, or, our peach crop here in Stowe is ready to rock again. So that's
Nice.
good news there. Now, in terms of the temperature, here it is. This is, I made this graphic going halfway through the winter, and because it was a great comparison about just how much colder it was compared to last winter. And you notice December ran about a half a degree below normal. January was about a degree and a half below normal, and then February was about a degree below normal. So when you stack it up against our normals, it was far from a wicked cold winter or coldest winter on record. But again, based on where we are in the modern climate, you can, and certainly the last two winters, this was an absolute shock to the system. And so I do recall having a conversation with a lot of people. They were noting how much colder this winter was, and they were spot on. But I think the takeaway is that last winter, December, January, and February was so warm. Last December, we were 5 degrees above normal. January was 3 degrees above normal, and February was also 3 degrees above normal. So um, the takeaway is that yes, this winter was certainly much colder than last winter, but in the grand scheme of things, uh, a little bit below normal in terms of where we should be for a winter here in Boston. Now, this is the one that I was showing Tim through the winter season. So I made this graphic for my Outlook back in November, and this showed the prior two winters and defining warm days and cold days. What I did was I wanted to take a cold day and define it as at least 5 degrees below average for that day, because I figure, anything less than five, I don't think it really stands out to a viewer or to a layperson as certainly as much as, at least 5 degrees warmer or colder than normal. So last winter, the prior winter, 2023, 2024, we only had 10 cold days and we had 40 warm days. Now, when you look at this most recent winter here, look at that. The cold days definitely outdueled the warm days. In fact, the warm days, we only had half as many as we did last winter. And the cold days, we had, 3 times as many. And so that was the thing that I took away from this winter, is that the northern jet stream was really dominant and repeating, where it seemed like you had a lot of northwest flow time and time again. And Tim, I'm sure you can speak to this, but northwest flow usually means northern New England does quite well. The J cloud in particular.
Yeah, I spend half my season up around Mount Mansfield, and it's been pretty wild. I was talking to a friend yesterday about how many days he tries to take a picture getting off the top of the quad. He skis every day. A lot of people up there ski every day, and he tries to do a picture every day, and he makes it into a sequence. And he said he missed 34 days this year because the top of the mountain was closed due to wind hold. So in the northern mountains, it was one of the windiest winters we've had in some time. As far as, can you run a ski lift up to 4,000 feet?
Yeah.
And right. And, but fortunately for us, as far as the snow goes, every time that happened, it snowed and it snowed and it snowed. And we got the snow stake at Mount Mansfield up to 102 inches just before the meltdown in early March. And we had 65 days in a row where it did not even rain one raindrop. And that was unprecedented in our lifetime. No one can remember a winter where 65 days into the year,
Wow.
that's the first time we even got a raindrop in the mountains and even the villages of northern Vermont. That's
Even
unprecedented.
even 2014, that's pretty remarkable, because 2013-14 was our last cold winter like this one in New England. And but
It
I-
it
now
just
that you
it,
say
it would
that,
have
I think
rained
there might
once
have
or
been like a
twice.
10-day pause. Yeah, there must have been like a 1 or 2 week pause in January of 2014 where it kind of backed off. But
At a
yeah.
couple times we were rivaling top 10. Well, the foot of snow that came on Columbus Day, we'd already done our webinar at that time, was the earliest foot of snow on record. And it snowed on Sunday. We got 5 inches of snow on Sunday, and it was horrible skiing. But it was just a cool pool aloft. And that was 195 days from the first snow to that last snow. And who knows if that's the last snow. J Peak says 475 inches for the year, which a lot of people don't trust that number, but meticulous are the people at Mount Snow at Stowe, which is Mount Mansfield, and it was 370, I believe, inches of snow. So where we lacked in Boston, we made up for in northern New England. So it was a tremendous ski season, one of the best ski seasons we all of us can remember. And
Yeah,
it's
I
still
remember there was a stat there where wasn't it like the New England resorts were outpacing the big resorts out west at one point or something like that? Or I'm
yeah,
not a
until
downhill
March,
skier, I'm a cross country
about March
skier.
11th or so. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because last year we were skunked. We thought ski season was going to end on March 11th, and last year it kicked in and it started snowing like crazy. We had two blizzards the second week of March, third week of March, and it kept going into April. And so this year was the exact opposite. Out west was getting skunked until about March 11th. So I call it the standing wave. We had the standing wave of cascading flow from Canada, and they had the standing wave of ridging in the Western United States. So kind of almost opposite of what most of us thought the jet stream was going to look like. And then it finally flipped, and it
Yeah.
saved their season. So by the second week of March, now they're getting feet and feet and feet of snow. And I think by the end of it, that snow place in Berkeley, California, and they ended up with just above average water equivalent and snowfall for the season, made up for it in the last 6 weeks.
Mm.
It's still snowing out there a little bit. So you can't forecast that stuff. So
No.
could we try and anybody want to chime in on what happened? Somehow we that southeastern ridge just got obliterated for a month there, or 2 months, except for when there was a storm coming at us that looked like maybe it would be snow next week. Remember that around the middle of January, when GFS was printing out this stripe of
Yeah.
20 to 35 inches of snow in the next 2 weeks and went
Yeah.
right through Worcester and Boston.
Right. Yeah.
And it did end up, friends in just north of maybe Manchester, New Hampshire to about Portland, Maine, just inland from Portland, said, well, it worked here. We had snow depths up around Old Orchard Beach of 21 inches there
Yeah.
when that happened. When was that? To start into February?
It was, yeah, very end of January, February, because I thought that cycle of model data, I thought, oh boy, here we go. This is, kind of like a mini blitz in 2015. Not to that level, obviously, ever again, but I did think we were gonna certainly come
Yeah.
out of that with more snow than what we ended up getting.
Uh, whose idea ever was to make a 10-day forecast?
I don't know. I'm
Anyways,
challenged with 7-day forecasts. So
I want tomorrow.
in
Right.
terms of my snow, here's what I had for Boston. I was you know, forecasting 30 to 40, Worcester 50 to 60, Nashua 40 to 50, and then Norton 30 to 40. And then there are the normal. So I was thinking below normal snow yet again. And then this is where we ended up. Um, I I was so close to Boston. I'm still holding out for May 9th, 1977 happening.
Har-
Um,
Harvological winter.
I don't think it's going to happen, but because technically the snow season, everyone, that runs from July 1st until June 30th. So technically, I still have a few weeks to go to see if this actually verifies or not. But for all intents purposes, I think we can lock it up right now. But yeah, I mean, I've always looked at seasonal forecasting. It's educated guess at best, and you're trying to find uh, a general theme to occur, and even within a general theme, you can have a week or two where you hit pause on that theme, like along the Gulf Coast, where they had epic snows. Um, but I think the general theme this winter was that, as you said, that cascading flow, that northern stream energy. While it was good to provide the cold, it was almost too much a good thing, because it seemed like it would suppress any kind of energy coming out of the southern plains or the southwest, and the two streams just never decided to phase until it was too late, toward the end of March and April. And um, that's the game we play, trying to figure out
Right.
what your
You're trying
pattern's
to
going to look like.
track the air that's in the North Pole and the air that's near Hawaii. It's going to be coming at us over the next 30 days, and it doesn't take much of a slip to either it
Yeah,
misses to the south or to the north.
yeah.
And it's so close. I mean, if you think of it on a global scale, the fact that we had so much snow up around northern Vermont, and I don't know, I don't find the Cape Cod number, but I think Cape Cod ended up with less than 10 again.
This is what I had for. I did put this graphic in there too for the outlook back in November, because I wanted to drive home the point that I thought northern New England would do well for snow, even though we would be below. And I think that came close. Although, as you just said, it
Yeah,
probably was above normal in the the mountain ridges, of course.
yeah,
I don't know Burlington's number off the top of my head, or Bangor, but um, I think we did pretty good up in northern, as you said, very good northern New England. So
right. Yeah, it had a lot to do with local orographic and elevation and upslope. And
yeah,
so, right, I think Burlington and Bangor probably ended up near normal. That's my guess. So I think that was a good forecast.
yeah. But yeah, that's how we ended up, folks. You know, it, it, I I I don't know where we're going next winter yet. I actually you know, I won't get into that until probably, after Labor Day. But it does look like once you get past the spring barrier for your ENSO forecasting, it looks like I think we've got a shot at maybe ENSO neutral or maybe weak El Nino, which those actually do very well with snowfall in southern New England. So, we'll see where the oceans want to line up, but that's, I mean, one of these years, our little snow drought that we're in, it's going to have to cycle back. That's what I tell a lot of folks, the snow lovers, that, the 1980s were like this as well. If you're a snow lover, the 1980s were a tough decade to be in southern New England because you had a lot of below normal snowy winters in southern New England in the 80s. And then it turned on a dime, and then you went above normal for 15, 20 years. And then that ended 2014, 2015. And really since then, I think we've only had two or three, maybe only two above normal winters for snow. So you've got natural variability. And then of course you've got other forces working on that as well. So, it'll swing back at some point. I just don't know when.
It's amazing. Yeah, everything works in waves. It's how's the summer going to be?
Probably hot and humid. I typically don't do. I don't do the only outlook I really do with the winter one is, and that's because I think that's the winter outlook draws in so many people for
Yeah.
no, right? Like myself included. Like one of the reasons I became a meteorologist growing up in the Berkshires was the snowstorms and all the snow we would get. Um, and so I don't really do much of a seasonal outlook anywhere else. I mean, the saddle seasons they're always a challenge anyway. Like, you know, in April alone, look what we did. And, our coldest temp in Boston was what, 28, and our hottest was 83. Worcester today is going to be close to 80. And a little over 2, 3 weeks ago, Worcester had, 7, 8 inches of snow. So it's a clash of seasons. But I would say the summer, it's you're probably looking at, you know, normal, maybe a little bit below normal precip to start, and then it maybe turns wet if El Nino comes on a little bit. I don't know though. It's tough to really say because I mean La Ninas are known for dry summers, but what was our wet summer? Was it 3 years ago when we were in La Nina? That was a little baffling to me. So
Weather is hard, as
do
we
you have
always find.
a thought on summer?
To me, I'm happy that there are so many fronts coming through here, and I was surprised how dry I had to water my garden yesterday because I've been monitoring all the rainfall for the last few weeks, every Saturday, except for, last Saturday it was 83, but this just a couple days ago, Saturday, um, we picked up generally 1 to 3 inches of rain, but Boston only got a half to 6/10. So the fronts are coming at us, and like this front tonight could have severe storms in Vermont at sunset, and we might get a raindrop in Boston.
Yeah.
So if this is where we like to say where fronts go to dry, that could be bad news. You end up with hot and humid, and for some reason the front gets sheared out, and you don't get the drenching downpours. Uh, so people have been asking me about drought status and all this, and I said I don't see a drought. I mean, we've been walking in mud in our backyard for some time until like the last 2 weeks. I would say that I'm optimistic that we're not going to have extended heat and humidity because we're getting the frequent fronts. Like tonight, the dew point goes up to 55. The dew point was 30s this morning. Dew point's going to be in the 30s again tomorrow night. So that's the worst thing. If you get the dew point to get up into the 60s, like last summer, is that what happened? We set this record for the number of days with dew points not going below 60 or something like that last summer.
Yeah.
That's dreadful, even though you might not have the hottest days, but the nights, if you,
Well,
so
you
I
don't get
think it's
any.
going to be
Yeah.
cooler. I think it's going to be cooler than last summer in the dew point department. And
Well, if you were to follow the theme of 2013, 2014, coming out of that winter, 2014, it didn't have a lot of humid weather from what I recall. And the heat was, like you always have heat now scattered about, but it wasn't crazy heat. I think that northwest flow continued through the year 2014 is my point.
uh-huh. Yeah, good. So that we kind of agree on that. All right, we got a couple chat questions. Sarah, do you know of any coastal current changes occurring which affects forecasting? People
Coastal
ask
current
that kind of
changes. Uh,
asking like, I think the Labrador current or the Gulf Stream, are they What's the whoop-de-doos look like out there, the eddies? And I
Yeah.
haven't looked at that. I was tempted to just look at that. And if I had remembered we were supposed to have a webinar today, I might have looked at that earlier. But people ask that, and I don't see a huge climatic shift in the waters. I know that people talk about that a lot, but the water temperature in Boston got down to about 42, which is pretty typical, and it stayed there for weeks and weeks. And
I would imagine coming out of winter, it's certainly colder than where we were the last 2 or 3 winters
yeah,
because
I was
two or
actually
three
just going to
winters
Google sea surface temperature anomaly. I'm going to do that quickly.
we didn't have a lot of cold the previous 2 winters. So, you know, the waters are always going to
Oh
respond.
my
So
goodness. Oh, the water is much colder than normal south of New England right now. And then it's the Gulf Stream. Oh my goodness. So the coldest, I can't share my screen. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to Google sea surface temperature anomaly, south of Nova Scotia is almost off the charts. South of Cape Cod, we've got the coldest water relative to average on the planet, bordering the Gulf Stream right now. That's fascinating. And that's actually good news for not a hot and humid summer. The Gulf is pretty warm though, and you can definitely see a neutral to um, negative. And so the North Pacific is warm relative to normal. All right, I'm gonna go back to the
everybody
chat.
see all this? Can you see what I'm doing right now? I'm trying to
Yeah.
find, let's see.
I just did a general. I wasn't in weather bell, but all right.
There's Africa, everybody.
Oh, it's hot and cold.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at that. Wow.
So can you see the scale right there? That purple?
That purple is about 5 to 6.
Actually, that's the actual temperature. Here's your anomaly right there. So,
Oh, oh, well, maybe I was looking
so your anomaly is, it's a little bit of, looks like it's just a smidge above normal there.
right on our coast. It
Yeah.
looked different on the scale that I was just looking at.
Let me see if I can get North America zoomed out. And there you go.
So that purple, that's cold, right? Yeah, that is. That says
Yeah.
off the charts cold. Look at that, all the way
Yeah.
out across into the central. And boy, did we have a lot of storms. Remember that parade? We had 5 coast to coast major storms in North America in March. And
Yeah.
we had 4 bombogenesises within, no, 3 bombogenesis within 5 weeks in the North Atlantic Ocean. So
Yeah. It was,
I don't know what that means for hurricane season, but obviously those hurricane people are already saying that it's going to be above average. Let's see. Rick says Sutton, New Hampshire got 58 inches of snow. Rick, that's probably a little below the climatological average, but much better than Boston.
let's see where we are with
Richard,
precipitation.
yeah, yeah. Check out our anomalies. Richard, were the winds unusually strong and often during this winter? It seems the trend is continuing into spring. Yes,
There
the
was
wind.
definitely more wind than recent years. I think some of that is because you did have more storms in the North Atlantic this year than the last 2 winters. We didn't have big nor'easters here, but we were still close enough to the storms to generate wind, if I'm not mistaken. So there's let's
What's
see.
that on Cape Cod, outer Cape Cod?
That is really dry in Chatham Bars Inn.
Well, they just got 1.5 inches, so that should help. That's probably not factored in there yet.
There we go. Yeah, I
Interesting.
mean, some of the data you're sampling is
Oh yeah, so there's Cape Cod's not showing anything there. Is that
cut off. It looks like Falmouth is down 1.7, but then Hyannis is down 0.2, so very localized.
and this is over what period? Oh, 60
This
day.
is
Yeah,
60 days.
yeah, gotcha.
If I can go back to 90 days, I do know we never made up that deficit from last fall. I don't think you ever truly make up deficits, but
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It doesn't work that way, right?
when I worked in Charlotte, North Carolina, we had a pretty severe drought, and the meteorologist in the hydrology division said you can't really look at, you know, you have to make up 24 inches of rain because you never truly make that up. You just have to kind of get back to a point where you're putting water into the ground more frequently than you used to. I don't think it's a 1-to-1 ratio, was his point. But that is going back. Let's see, end of January. Yeah, so 90 days. So
Wow.
running
It's
still kind of dry recently. But then you have a little bit above in the Worcester Hills and Metro Boston.
yeah, and then look at the Green Mountains. On the west side
Yeah.
of the Green Mountains, all that upslope. And eastern
Yep.
Maine must have gotten clipped by a bunch of those storms that just missed us.
So if your soils are dry, then you probably have, as you were alluding to earlier, your soils are dry, so you have less evaporation. So when your fronts approach New England, they can't they can't draw upon moisture out of the ground like you could if it was the opposite. And so like even right now, I mean, you have a nice windy day, but there's no cumulus field out ahead of a front, nothing. So the air is dry though. You can feel the dryness of the air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good point. I mean, that high just came in like yesterday. Got white caps on the Fore River here in the Gulf of Weymouth.
nice.
Boats are coming in. John asks, do weather records support that consecutive 3-month seasonal temps during past recent years have been above average, with the possible exception of this past winter? I would say affirmative.
I'm trying to decipher the question. So basically asking, is it?
Are all the seasons running warmer than climatological average overall over the recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's your modern climate.
Right. And it still gets dark at the North Pole. And so it still gets really cold at the poles and the South Pole soon. So the cold is still there. And as you warm the planet, the cold's fighting back. And Judah Cohen will tell us, and it's not hyperbole, that it's snowing more, even though it might not get as deep, and especially lower elevations, but
Yeah,
it's snowing more because we're moistening the area closer to the pole, I believe. It makes sense if you're gonna have a more moist, less ice at the poles means more water, and it still gets very cold. And I think that shows with some of the snowfall amounts like we've seen, not here obviously in Boston, but up in northern Vermont, California, last few years.
yeah. Feast or famine, right? When it snows big.
It melts fast too. Just didn't happen this year until last week. It was skiing. We had two Wednesday, Thursdays in a row in April where we were skiing powder, and on the about April 8th or so, we were skiing champagne powder in April. I'm talking incredibly low density, 17 inches. It was
Wow.
just 2 weeks ago. It's amazing. No,
Mm.
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago now. Yeah. All
Yep.
right. Well, this is time left. Time left 4 minutes. Oh, good. Cheryl, that's okay.
Yeah. Uh,
That's fine.
no, I know.
We've got other things to do. We got to go
Apparently, this is a
prune our
free Zoom.
gardens.
Yeah. We got to work out our technical issues now.
Yeah, clean the catkins off the windshield. You know, the maple catkins are all accumulated there in your windshield. You got to kind of get that out. And now we're about to. We just had our maples go by, and now it's going to be oak over the next 2 weeks. Ugh.
Yeah, the oaks, that's the one tree in my yard that gives me a problem. Scratchy throat, watery eyes, and
Yep.
he's
And
right over there.
oh yeah, look at them all. Oh boy. Well, you're blessed with a lot of trees. That I have some friends out in Sudbury. My brother-in-law has lost about half of his big oak trees with the storms of the last 10 years.
Yeah, this one right here, this guy, the front part of the canopy is gone because of Snowtober 2011. It was definitely had one more arm coming out the front here, but
Snowtober.
uh,
You're probably familiar with the expression Harvological winter. Remember talking to Harvey about that one?
Harvological, no, but I do. I think his first week here wasn't it May 9th, 10th, 1977.
Yep. So
Welcome to Boston.
right, and there had been some GFS output over the last couple of days. There was one 3 days ago that showed about a 8 inches of snow at your house on Sunday into Monday, and now it looks like it's going to be more like 60 degrees or 70 degrees. Oh, how does that happen? No, Harvey talks about this other snowstorm that happened even later than May 9th in New Hampshire, up around
Oh,
Sunapee
really?
or so.
Oh,
I
wow.
think within his DMA, so it would have been around Manchester,
Okay.
and I can't remember that. So we got to get in touch with Harvey and ask him
You
about
did
that.
have it was the pandemic, May of 2020. I actually had some snow showers on May 9th and 10th, ironically enough, almost to the day. Like even some snow pellets on these chairs that I have out now. I couldn't believe it. So
Yeah, and that pandemic, they closed all the ski resorts, and there was more snow in May than we had seen in decades, and everyone was hiking up and doing that.
nice.
And it wasn't that long ago, 5 years,
No.
right?
Yep.
So things can happen. Well, it looks like we've satisfied ourselves and our 22 participants. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for the interest on a beautiful spring day in New England to talk about
Thank
snow
you.
and cold one more time. I do appreciate it. And we'll see what happens this coming winter. Everyone have a fun summer. Use your sunscreen.
Thank you.
Stay hydrated.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy and Tim. We
All
Thanks.
right.
appreciate it so much. Thank you, everybody. We'll stay in touch, and please look forward to the Southern New England Weather Conference coming up in October, October 25th this year.
Oh, nice. Okay. Got it on the calendar.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Rick, I'll get back to you on what you just said about the May snow. We appreciate it. All right. See everyone.